Hello and welcome to the 12 o'clock news. With myself and Sideshow this week is Captain Planet. Welcome, Mr. Captain Planet.
Great to be on.
The first thing we're going to talk about this week is LDLC and Bonjour disbanding to form a new French roster. Josh, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, this was a bit of a surprise to me, actually, because I didn't expect LDLC to split up after they just actually competed at a French LAN, and then Bonjour left their organization and kind of split all over the place. Hardest, I don't even know how to pronounce that guy's name. He's got a random Q in the middle of it. Has gone over to trial for LG Loyal, but Cabal and Nox, who are the two French guys on LDLC, have decided to try and make their own French roster out of it. And what's so interesting to me is that the French scene is just thriving. Like, it's got so much talent. You've got Rogue, you've got Gamers Origin, who are another like strong European team at the moment, and then now you've got like this mix of players from Bonjour and stuff. So it's good times for the French scene, I think.
Yeah, that's something I noticed when, like, I guess this is my first FPS that I've covered with esports, and I didn't realize how entrenched the French were in FPSs in general. Like, we have all these like very top tier players coming out of the region, and is that just a thing? Like, do the French really like FPS games, or are they just good at video games in general?
I think it is FPS games, yeah, because the CSGO French scene has always been fantastically talented. Essentially, the only thing holding them back from true greatness has been their own personality conflicts and just ability to tie themselves into ridiculous knots of factions and teams competing against each other and stuff like that. In Shootmania as well, those players were fantastic. A lot of them now play in Rogue. People like Soon, Crew. Who else was from Shootmania? I think some of the other French guys were as well, but that's not a scene I was particularly familiar with. TF2 always had a lot of good French players as well, and it's carried through. So I'm excited to see how it goes. They always have their own little LAN circuits, and they're always competing against each other. So although Rogue's on top at the moment, it'd be nice to see some other teams come through with a lot of French talent on them.
Now, particularly with the two players that have gone over to trial, or is it two? I don't remember, but a couple players have gone over to trial in NA. There seems to be this prevailing opinion that the EU scene outside of just France is kind of on the downturn. So do you think that these players are just trying to take what opportunities they can to get to NA?
When I was talking to Cabal, the leader of LDLC, who's now trying to form this French roster, he may have been a little bit like salty about it because his players have left, but he did say to me the primary reason was because they were trying to look for opportunities elsewhere where they would be able to move over to North America. Now, talking to individual players, not all of them had that motivation, it seems, because some of them aren't even trialing for teams at the moment. Anak and Kenzie, I don't believe, are currently trialing or have only just dabbled with a couple of people. Whereas Meza, their tank, is trialing. He's trialing for Complexity at the moment and trying to get in there, it seems. And Hardest from Bonjour is looking to move over to LG Loyal. Flippy from the previous Penta team and around this kind of area with the other French guys is also trying for LG Loyal. So definitely there's, in a sense, this feeling from a lot of European players that North America is the land of opportunity. We've gone back to like the 1800s again. They want to flee across the Atlantic as fast as they can.
That's an interesting, yeah.
Speaking of money, we want to talk about the new Australian tournament, 12K Australian with LAN finals. What does that translate to in US dollars? Do you know?
It's like 9,000.
Yeah, I think it's about $9,000 US. Okay,
so they're still under that 10K cap.
Yeah, they are.
Oh yeah, that is important.
Yeah, and only 10,000 of those Oz dollars are for the LAN itself. The other 2,000 are getting split up into two pieces, and $1,000 goes to the winner of each qualifier to get to the LAN finals as well. So it's being split up slightly more, but it's the largest tournament that Oceania has ever had. So it's looking to be pretty exciting, actually.
It'd be nice to see a LAN too. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, gosh, I think I can't even remember exactly when the last LAN would be. Would that be MLG if we don't count Apex?
NG?
Yeah, NG.
No,
of course.
Oh, NG. Oh, yeah, that's right.
For the Oceanic region, I think I'm right in saying that this will be the first LAN that they've actually had,
yeah,
unless there were small community LANs or something. Yeah, I don't remember seeing one. The Heroes League, the Oceanic Summer Series, was originally going to have LAN finals, ended up not working out, despite the fact that they had the studio and excellent production. I recently did an interview with Fusion Girls as well, who are the top team over there, and who've been scrimming Koreans exclusively for the last 4 months, which I found incredibly interesting, actually. And they're the favorites going into the tournament. They look like a promising roster.
Yeah, I think the whole scrimming Koreans thing is like the hyperbolic time chamber of the EU and NA scene. Like they can never the guys from EU and NA can't say enough great things about playing in Korea. So if Fusion Girls has been tapping into that, they're probably I definitely say they're the favorites. The problem is we never really get a good feel for how good these teams are because of the ping difference and because they don't really ever and the time difference, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can't think of the last time that an Australian team played in even a Gosu weekly back when those were going on. I don't think it was a very common occurrence.
I think they have like... Go on.
I was going to say what I'm excited about is this kind of sets the stage for a truly global FPS, like seeing all these different regions kind of grow and expand of their own accord. You know, there's no one really supporting, you know, the European groups that are putting on little tournaments, and the tournaments in Australia and the tournaments in obviously Korea are huge, and then we've got US, which is getting a ton of support. But seeing all these different regions kind of blossom and grow, and South America too, I forgot the Old Spice, South America. It's really, really exciting for me, the concept that we could have so many different continents grow and eventually compete, hopefully at the same level, to actually see all of them come together would be really, really exciting to me. Because I can't think of a game where that really happens in FPS.
Yeah. I mean, go on, Captain Planet. Yeah.
I was gonna say ultimately for Overwatch to continue being as popular as it is, at least on the esports level, we will have to, or at least every region will almost have to have these grassroots events to keep people interested and to develop their own local talent.
Yeah. CS kind of has this, where it has individual qualifiers in each region that then come and play together in the offline qualifiers for the big majors. So you see representation from almost all the regions. You see like 1 or 2 Australian teams, an Asian team, a Brazilian team. Obviously, the Brazilian teams are fantastic at the moment, but previously had been much smaller. And then the Western scenes as well. So they have bits of the surrounding area, but definitely way more popular in North America, now South America, thanks to the success of those Brazilian teams, and in Europe, whereas Overwatch, as you were saying, has that potential to tap into the Asian scene and potentially even like the Oceanic scene and Southeast Asian scene in a way that hasn't been seen in a FPS before.
One thing I just thought of with regard to a LAN, I wonder how many of these players are out in Perth, which, as I understand, is a bit far to travel. Like, that's the one city on Western Australia compared to the many cities on the eastern side. That might be a bit expensive to get from one side to the other.
Yeah, when I was talking to them, actually, their 2 DPS players are in Sydney, and the rest of them are actually on the west, as far as I know, because they were saying they had all 200 ping to Japanese servers, whereas the 2 DPS players have a 120, so they're very spread out. You forget sometimes how huge Australia is. It's enormous. It's 2,500 miles nearly from the east to the west. It's like I was looking at maps where they just pick up Australia and lay it on top of like Europe, and it's bigger than anything. You could fit a ridiculous amount of things in there, and it's so empty as well. What a strange country.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about LG Loyal, removing Mineral and Icefell to trial 2 new players. I believe the tagline from Harsha was, "These pros ain't loyal."
Yeah, these pros ain't LG loyal.
Laughed about that longer than I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is a direct result of LG picking up LG Evil? Do you think that they're linked at all?
I think they are linked, not in a direct way. I think LG was looking at their team and the fact that they'd got a promising roster 2 strong over from Europe, and they had completely failed to make any kind of splash in the North American scene. From right at the beginning, when they first brought them over, they looked so underwhelming, and they've continued that trend that they thought, right, now's our opportunity. We'll pick up a really solid roster that we can invest most of our time into, LG Evil, and then we'll make tweaks to this LG Loyal roster and see if we can get it to be good. And if we can't, then I think that it looks like if they can't get this roster to a place where they're happy with it, they'll either sell it to somebody else or drop them and focus on LG Evil. That's my idea of what LG are probably going to be doing with this move, because LG Evil are looking just a distance ahead of LG Loyal at this point. Having said that, they actually had a really close game last night.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Over the course of the past 2-3 months, something like that, they've looked a fair distance ahead of their now assistant team.
I was really surprised.
Yeah, so for those who might not be familiar, LG Evil is former Hammers, and Hammers have been playing very well throughout the tank meta. They kind of rose up to the top during that, and then even post tank meta, they've had really good results either way. I actually thought when Luminosity acquired Hammers that they were making some sort of play to profit off of the Overwatch League, because I don't know that Luminosity will be able to afford a spot, and they don't have a sports team, like an outside backer, to buy the spot for them. So I kind of figured that they were maybe trying to sign these players to a contract that they would then sell to a team looking to fill.
Yeah.
Now that they've kind of made this, well, I don't know if it was the players' decision or LG's decision, but now that these players are leaving and they're allegedly tinkering with the teams, maybe that isn't 100% of why they signed Hammers.
I think it's a good pickup either way, because they were looking really strong. Hammers are a smaller organization that can't provide them the same level of support. Like you were saying, though, LG, I don't think they're going to be a team that's got the dollar to be able to compete in the Overwatch League. They're not backed by any huge companies, as far as I'm aware. They don't have that kind of funding. Having said that, they're probably in talks for it, but they're a big name within esports. They're not a huge backed organization with a ton of liquid assets to be able to invest like $2 to $5 million for a league spot. But what's interesting to me as well, actually, is that none of the original Two Strong roster from Luminosity, when they first picked them up, are there. Like, they got Hidan from who was he playing with? Misfits. Yeah. And they got Spree from NWA. They got Oob, who was playing with LDLC, and they got Super Fluke, who was playing with Bonjour, was it? And they're the only 4 players left on the roster. So
Too Strong was the problem?
Yeah, apparently.
Even though that was the entire team that they picked up initially?
Yeah, not strong enough. Although, having said that, the 3 Swedes that were originally playing for Too Strong went to Misfits in that trade. So they kind of swapped out the core of that Too Strong roster. And the rest of them got cut. Another thing that's interesting to me about this trade is that they've put Reels, or they're trialing Reels, on Lucio. Now, Reels used to be a really good hit scan DPS, so not really sure why he's on Lucio. I spoke to Hafikul yesterday, who used to be his partner in crime. They were the 2 DPS players on NWA, and he was unsure as well. He doesn't really know why, because in his mind, Reels used to play a godly tracer, really good hit scan DPS, and has a deep hero pool as well. So I'm not sure why he's gone to Lucio. Maybe for his calling or something. He always used to be fairly smart. Don't really know what they're doing there.
Yeah, it's not like they don't have a DPS slot open. The only DPS left is Ube, and honestly, I think you'd almost want to put Ube off of DPS because he makes the weirdest decisions to me. But that's just my take. So it does seem strange that they put Reels on the Lucio when he's allegedly super duper good at DPS anyway.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the tournament that was just announced, I think 2 days ago. Kind of a surprise. The Pit Overwatch Championship. The qualifiers are going to start tomorrow. I guess this is coming out tomorrow. So today, which is the same night as we're going to start the championships for the Agents 1v1 Duel tournament. So that'll be interesting. I'm not really sure why both are happening at the same time, because we've been doing these for quite a while. But this actually was a complete surprise to me. I did not know that this tournament was happening until the announcement came out. But it looks like a pretty good lineup. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about the invited teams we got here?
Yeah, go
ahead, Sideshow.
Just before you run through the teams, the invites were sent out, apparently, according to the organizer on Reddit, I think he was talking about this, was sent out, 3 weeks ago or something like that. So there are some teams that are kind of left out who have shown themselves, or some people who were unable to accept because they were still competing in Apex and stuff like that. But overall, it does actually seem like a really good tournament. Yeah.
I wonder if the level of teams that we see coming out is just a symptom of there not really being any other tournaments going on at the time. But we do also see, like you said, Envious, Fnatic, Cloud9, pretty noticeably missing there. I think at least in part because they didn't know how far they were going to get in Apex, or maybe they don't see this tournament as worth their time. At least in Envious's case, you might think that.
Yeah, Fnatic are actually going to be competing in the Open qualifiers, and there's 2 slots in this tournament from the Open qualifiers for North America. So they're going to be competing in it. Selfless are going to be competing in the Open qualifiers, as far as I know. I don't think Cloud9 are, but they might come in at a later date, and I don't think Envious are either. But even with just Fnatic and Selfless, those are 2 very strong teams over the last while that are going to be entering through the Open qualifier. So if there's any other strong team that wants to get in, that's going to be quite the qualifier.
So does that imply that they never got an invite, or that they turned it down, or both?
I think Selfless didn't get one. Fnatic turned it down, but I could be wrong there.
Okay. And as you said before, Selfless definitely should have gotten a direct invite, at least judging on their past couple weeks of play. They've skyrocketed in how good they are ever since picking up Dafran and moving into the team house. They've really been on fire. They almost, I don't know if they invented it, but they're now known for their spawn camping tactics, and it's a new wrinkle to defense in Overwatch in particular. So I hope they just blast through the qualifiers easy peasy, because I want to see them in the finals.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool storylines for this tournament, actually. Given that it's only $15,000, I say only, that's still a good sized tournament, but it's only 5,000 more than the Alienware monthly melees that happen every month. And there's no kind of cross-region, no LAN or anything like that. So given the fact that it's all online and it's only 15K, there's actually some really cool storylines. In Europe, you've got NiP coming out, playing their first tournament in 3.5 months. That's sick. We haven't seen them at all. How are they going to go up against these teams with really good triple DPS like E United? How are they going to play against the teams that we haven't seen ever play against NiP, like Hammers, who used to be the Chavs? So how are they going to play against the new Misfits as well? That's going to be really cool to see. So the European tournament looks really cool in terms of how it's going to lay out there, with NiP, Misfits, and E United at the top. In North America as well, you've got Rogue playing. They're going to be competing against LG Evil, who've been looking so dominant recently within that kind of tier 2 of North America. You've got Selfless, Fnatic in there, and NRG's first tournament as well. So really interesting stuff, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I'm most interested in seeing how Misfits fares in EU, because we haven't seen. I think the new roster immediately went to Korea, and we haven't seen them play anything else, right? Ever since the trade.
Yeah, that's right. They went and played in IEM Gyeonggi, and then they came back and played some scrims, and then they went over to Korea again.
Yeah, so this Misfits roster is, we would probably call them like a tier 1 team, and we haven't seen them face off against any other tier 1 non-Korean teams really. So yeah. I'm really interested to see basically what happens when the tier 1 teams come back to lay the smackdown on the tier 2 teams. At least let's hope that that's how it turns out, because if I guess they get taken out by a surprise tier 2 team, or just any team really, what does that say about the strength of Western Overwatch, I guess?
Well, actually, in a strange way, that would be promising, because if Misfits comes back to Europe, having performed fairly well at Apex, only losing to the best teams that were there, and then has to play incredibly close against NiP, United, Hammers, teams like that. I think in a sense that gives me more hope for the Western teams, because despite not having been to Korea, they can still compete with the other elite teams. Now, Misfits as well, since you brought it up and I'd forgotten to mention it, are going through some role changes and have put Nevix back on DPS and so now they've got Nevix and Tweak on DPS. They've put Manitin on Flex and put Lucio over on Ana. So this could be a new look for Misfits as well that I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good decision, because Nevix is a god tier Ana, but he's actually just a god tier pretty much any hero that he touches. I'm pretty sure like almost he's gotten like number 1 or number 2 in the SR rankings every season, and oftentimes he's been top 5 on 2 different accounts because he's insane. So that'll be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, he is absolutely insane. And putting Zebasai over on the Ana role, I think, will spread out the calling to the point where they have a bit more structure in the team.
Mm-hmm.
Have they announced their talent for this yet? I can't seem to find it.
They have not.
For Pit? Yeah, they're still working on that, I'm told. I think actually ZP was saying in Discord right before we started that they're going to bring Jason Kaplan and name's escaping me. The Australian guy.
Oh, Mitch. Uber.
Yeah,
Uber.
I think they're bringing them out of hiding and getting them in for at least part of it. I don't know. I can't remember if ZP said that he'd be doing it or not, but I think those two for sure.
Nice.
That's pretty awesome.
Excuse me, my eye is itchy.
Well, let's take it over to Harsha for some more game in-depth discussion. Harsha.
All right, so today I kind of wanted to talk about how basically all of the European teams are going to end up moving to North America. So I think everybody except for NIP so far has announced, or all the big teams except for NIP and Dignitas have announced, and I think it's going to kind of throw off like the power balance and all. I don't know. There's a lot of people tell me that there's no real difference between the skill and NA and EU. Like from what I've seen, I feel like all the top teams in EU are just significantly better than NA, except for Envious and potentially Cloud9. And I think this might potentially just make it so that all the top teams in NA are European, except for, Envious, which is pretty much European, and Cloud9, which is half European.
The interesting thing to me as well is that the positive of that is that you actually get international, or in some sense like intercontinental tournaments running fairly regularly. They just all happen to be living within the US. So it does have that going for it. You know, you've got the entirety of the Western scene, at least all the good teams, in North America. The huge downside of that, though, is that they've got no training partners with anybody who's trying to get up in the European scene, which has been proven again and again to be like a great developing ground for talent. So that's a big issue with the whole thing. But you said all the top teams. Have United also said that they want to move over?
So EU United is going to, I think they're boot camping in Korea right now, and then they're going to move to NA right after that.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't even know about that. Misfits,
even
I know
teams like,
said.
Yeah, and then even teams like Hammers are planning to move to NA. So like Hammers are good, but like even the known or well-known top teams basically.
So what are we going to have at that point? Ninjas in Pajamas, Gamers Origin, I guess like Team Singularity Ninjas, Movistar Riders. These are all tier 2 teams though, really, apart from Ninjas in Pajamas. And they're just going to have another 4-month break where they don't play anything again. It's a very weird situation, yeah.
So it's like, I guess it's like nice for like the top Europeans that are coming over, but like it really screws over the scene because basically, like you said, they're no scrim partners for the ones that are developing. But then again, like, if you think about it, maybe like a year from now, more European talent comes up, and then we just have only Europeans because all the good Europeans that moved early on came to NA, and then the developing ones like grew up in Europe. I don't know, like this could potentially be really weird.
Well, it definitely is going to be really strange. But the other thing as well is that there's only going to be a set amount of spots in the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
There's not going to be like 20 spots. It seems incredibly unlikely. I don't think they actually released any figures, but it seems to me like there's going to be somewhere between like 10, 12, max is going to be like 15, 16, surely. That seems like a large amount of teams to be like having spots within this league. So there are definitely going to be reasonably good teams that miss out, and especially reasonably big names that miss out. Is there a point then, being in North America, when all of the top teams are tied into the Overwatch League? They're not going to be playing in like Alienware Monthly Melees if they've got the Overwatch League to play in. So at that point, you've moved over to North America in order to play the best talent and play in these tournaments, but the top end of it have been isolated in the Overwatch League for 4-5 months of the year. So for a team like Hammers, they're just moving over there because there's more tournament opportunities, surely at some point that's going to happen in Europe, isn't it? Otherwise, the game is actually just going to die. Like you can't operate on the principle that Europe is always going to have no tournaments. It's not going to be an esport then, is it? It's just going to be dead. So what's the point in doing anything? Like Europe at some point is going to have tournaments. It has to.
I think the problem is Blizzard doesn't really want to support non-Blizzard tournaments in a sense, and so like, I mean, we have the what's it called, the Overwatch Pit or whatever it's called. I mean, that's just turning into a shit show, as far as I know. It like the qualifiers are best of one. Like, I don't know, but like they're not even gonna cast those actually. And outside of that, I can't really think of anything that EU has going for it. And like you did say that essentially what's gonna happen is like you're gonna have like 10 to 16 teams somewhere in that range in the Overwatch League. I think there is a benefit that you will be able to practice against those teams because you're not in that league and directly competing with them. So like there's an added benefit, but like not being able to actually compete in tournaments is kind of ridiculous. It's like definitely not a worth trade-off. So I don't know. What might happen is like the teams that don't make it into the Overwatch League go back to EU or something like that. But like when teams are investing into team houses or like practice places and whatnot, like definitely seems like a kind of a big investment for something that's like not sure or not certain at all.
And this is one of the reasons that esports like CSGO have restrictions on where the teams can compete. You know, if you're a European team, as in most of your players are from Europe, I believe the cutoff is like 3 out of 5 players have to be from the region that you actually compete in. And we're talking about major qualifiers here. So they have the 3 majors a year. And if you want to compete in one of those majors and you have to go through a qualifier, it has to be within the region that the players are from, so that teams can't move to North America just to take advantage of the better tournament circuit that happens to be there, or that they can't move to Australia to compete because the average competition is lower, so they're more likely to get in. So that's what their system is designed to prevent, this spread of talent or concentration of all the top teams where most of the money is. But in general, it does seem to be a better system, that essence of region lock-in for the largest tournaments. But then you run into issues of actually not, if Overwatch doesn't have enough international tournaments, then you just have independent scenes that you can't mix between. It is quite nice to be able to see the best teams go and actually compete in a tournament rather than be stuck in Europe where there isn't anything.
Well, yeah, it's like definitely cool that we're going to have basically every North American event's going to be international in some sense. And we're actually, since this is being released tomorrow, I think we can say this, like we're going to see like Runaway competing in the Alienware Monthly Melee, like some Brazilian team is also playing. So like I think tournaments are definitely going to be more and more
global,
open in a sense. Yeah, global. But I don't know. It definitely is weird when you like think about Blizzard's announcement, how they say they want to roll out the league and make it global, because that kind of implies that they're going to open up another league in Europe, and then like what happens when all the European teams are here? Like who's going to play in that European league?
If they open up a similar league in Europe, then it's just going to be the same thing, except the other way around. Like all of the teams that didn't make it from North America will move back to Europe. Like that is literally what's going to happen, though, isn't it? Because if every good Western team has moved over to North America to take advantage of that, and they only select the top 10, that I say top 10, it might be some random 10 that happen to have the money to buy into the scene as well. I don't quite understand how they're going to make sure that the best teams also have the best money and they have the best tournaments always within OWL when they're only having... Anyway, but these top 10 teams are removed and put over here in the OWL bracket, and then you've got a load of other teams in America. Now, if opportunities open up in Europe, it then becomes advantageous from a financial point of view and from like a competition point of view to move over to Europe. Now, whether that's back to Europe for any European teams who didn't get into the OWL, or whether it's literally moving from a North American point of view, you're always going to have less money in the European scenes just because of how marketing budgets work. But if Blizzard are pumping in the same money to both regions kind of artificially, no matter what money they're actually getting back, then it does become advantageous to move over to Europe. So that might be a way that it ends up equalizing out, like 2 years down the line.
It's got to be much cheaper to keep a team in Europe as well than to keep one in the U.S. The cost of living's higher, food's higher, rent and all that stuff. And getting to America, I mean, Numlock is talking about how he and IDDQD are having difficulty just getting over here. And we know that the restrictions right now in the U.S. are getting a little bit worse due to some questionable leadership decisions. So it's actually becoming more and more difficult to come to America, whereas Europe traditionally is easier to get into. Most people actually speak English, so it's easier for a lot of Americans to travel to Europe than it is for maybe Europeans who don't speak English to come to America, and cheaper. So it seems like it would be a better option to move a team to Europe, where travel is going to be a lot lower because everything's closer together. So if you are moving from coast to coast, it's not really that big of a deal. Well, not coast to coast, but you know what I'm saying? It's just much, it's smaller, it's cheaper, and there's a really high concentration of skill. So it would make sense to me to have a team in Europe as opposed to having a team in the US.
If the tournaments are there.
If the tournaments are there. Yeah, if the support is there and the infrastructure exists and the money is there and you have a decision between the two, 10 out of 10, I would go to Europe. Just because it's less expensive and easier to do.
So moving the teams that didn't make it back to Europe is something I didn't consider. Like even American teams might be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of means that basically those teams have nothing to do until when is it, like sometime next year, honestly, like sometime in mid 2018, I would assume is when the second season would start, because we know this season's kind of like a smaller like trial version as far as I think they've said that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think they have. That might have been just an assumption.
I think they've been walking back a lot.
Some of the assumptions blend into some of the stuff that's already been released, and it can be difficult to part the two in your mind. But I think they've said that they're starting slower. Because they definitely said, like, Nate was saying in an interview when it first announced that he wanted there to be home and away games, but that would be, like, 2018 onwards. You know, he didn't have that as his plan initially. So they're definitely going to be rolling this out in stages, that's for sure.
I think Europe's hungry for it, and I think they can tell that. So you would hope that if it's successful in the U.S., that it would be a natural step to move over there as quickly as possible and take advantage before the scene, deflates any more than it already has done.
Before it happens. Oh, you're back.
There we go.
We had a bit. Yeah. So, really though, you were saying questionable leadership decisions, about the visa entry stuff for North America. But actually, he's right on the money, and Blizzard should have done this years ago. What they needed to do was, you got all these Europeans trying to come into your league and steal your Overwatch spots, build a wall, build a cyber wall, and keep them out. Because they come in here, they're trying to cast your tournaments, they're trying to run them, they're trying to compete in them. Get them out. Let teams like LG Evil compete. Let the other teams compete. I think,
FaZe actually was playing our 3v3s. A couple weeks ago, and most of them are in Europe, and physically in Europe, and the ping was unbelievably high. They still owned. They just pounded. It's actually really funny that with that much of a ping handicap, and they were feeling it. They were getting really frustrated, you could tell. But they were still just pounding everybody. So I don't know, man. I don't even think ping is a high enough wall.
Increase the ping. Artificially increase the ping. Make them pay customs tax on ping.
10 more MS.
Yeah. No. It is nice, though, to see some rising North American teams and talents, actually, because for quite a while it did seem like, apart from the absolute elite, the second tier of NA was real lackluster. And now I feel like you've actually it was. And now I feel like you've actually got teams that can begin to compete with those top teams, both in North America and Europe. Teams like LG Evil, teams like Immortals, although they've started to slip recently, they don't look as good as they did like a month ago. Teams like Selfless as well, although they've got a Danish guy that brought Dafran into the team. But these kind of teams look like you give them time, you put them in a situation where they're competing against Rogue, Cloud9, Fnatic, Envious, Misfits if they come over. And that seems like it could be a decent breeding ground for the North American talent that so far has been fairly underwhelming, apart from, the mixed teams of Cloud9, Fnatic, Envious, not a single North American, but whatever. USA.
I'm not too surprised that Immortals has been falling off, kind of, because they were, I mean, they were always like kind of middle of the pack in NA when it came to dive, and then I think they really got boosted up with the like the tank meta, because Agilities was playing like really well on Roadhog, but like recently they've kind of looked lackluster. I feel like games kind of come down to whether Grim Reality carries or not. But yeah, I do agree. Like I think we've seen LG Evil looks like really good compared to all the North American teams we've seen. I think they're undefeated in that Carbon Series tournament.
Yeah, they've had some really close games, but they are undefeated.
Yeah. And then they have like a 5-game series against LG Loyal or something. But I guess maybe it could come down to being like scrim partners. Yeah, throwing for
their sister team.
They couldn't throw hard enough.
I think Flippy's just too strong.
Yeah,
Flippy was good. But and I actually haven't watched Selfless yet. Like they played in like one broadcasted tournament that I could have watched, I think. But I mean, I've heard like really good things about them. So like, it's kind of nice to see like fresh talent coming up. Maybe they'll be able to compete with the Europeans. We'll see.
All right, and we're here with Numlocked of NRG Esports, or is it Energy or NRG? I've always wondered that.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
It's just
It doesn't even stand for anything. It's literally just energy. It doesn't even stand for anything.
Fair enough.
Of course, it doesn't stand for anything. It's supposed to sound like the word energy. That's
retarded. I hate it.
I'll tell you what, actually, where I'm from, in Middlesbrough, the only company around here that's called NRG is not like an energy company or anything like that. It's providing sexual advice for young homosexual boys. So that's instantly what I think of.
Wow, this went off the rails.
This is already my
This
favorite
is a sexual advice team.
Yeah, I mean, they do a great job, I'm sure. I see their trucks like all over the place in Borough, but that's immediately the connection I make.
That's what I watched on the stream for.
Yeah, moving swiftly on. All right, the first question I want to ask you is actually not about the team. It's about the recent partnership with Events DC, because people were talking about that a lot. It's a city or like an organization that's partly funded by the city and partly a private organization, and Siegel and Dummy and Andy Miller and stuff were doing a lot of press stuff. So how is this actually what does this mean for you guys? What does this mean for the Overwatch team? He's dead.
I think he's lagged out.
He's
Yeah, his camera. No, 3G. 3G
Oh, we're
set.
back.
Hello.
We're back, boys.
There you go.
All right,
Did
let's
you
just
catch any of that question?
Okay, so my 4G died because I streamed and uploaded today. So
All right. So
that's why more data.
I was asking you about Events DC.
Yeah.
The announcement just hit. It's a company that's to do with Washington, D.C., but also a bit privately owned. We've seen Siegel, Andy Miller, people talking about it. What does this mean for you guys?
Honestly, I can't really say too much about what it does mean for us until we move a bit further into the future. But obviously, it does open up possibilities for things like the Overwatch League, where we kind of have our foot in the door in several places, and we're ready to go wherever it might be. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Are you guys going to be doing similar stuff to the Splice people who we recently saw boot camping at Delaware North? Is that the kind of stuff that we might see from you guys in the more like short term stuff?
I mean, there's the potential there for boot camps, and there's the potential for like training stuff, like where fans can come in and like maybe have coaching sessions and stuff there. Like who knows? There's a lot of opportunities available with the DC arena coming up.
So we had IDDQD on last night on our podcast, and one of our hosts, Pesto Enthusiast, works for a similar organization, or at least he used to. As he explained it to us, it's one of those things that they want to set up events that'll kind of increase the tourism to DC. So like bring in people from other cities to come to DC for one reason or the other. This makes a lot of sense, especially on the East Coast, because on the East Coast of the U.S., a lot of the cities are really close together. I can imagine having like Overwatch League matches hosted by DC events where Energy is playing, and you can draw in people down from New York and up from like even Charlotte area where Envious is. It's not that far of a drive. It's like 5 or 6 hours up to DC. So I think the partnership makes a lot of sense, especially on the East Coast.
Yeah, and there's not much going on the East Coast right now. There's no like venue or anything like that that's really endemic or emblematic of the area.
Yeah, whereas in LA you got Esports Arena.
Yeah, and we're opening in Oakland soon, and we're announcing a third location this week. So we're
Shills.
Below
Shills.
Hey, they are my employer, and this is on the YouTube. So. All right, so my question is actually, obviously you guys picked up IDDQD. What is that What does that relationship look like right now, and how has that kind of changed the feel of the team? Because you guys you stripped it down to 3 players, right? And then you've just been trialing 3 players leading up until now. You guys are going to be competing in the pit tournament.
Ooh, no.
You're not?
No, we're not.
Really?
Yeah, we've just because me and ID are still in Europe. We don't really want to play in tournaments, and obviously the whole trialing process, we've not actually been like working on our play outside of being a mixed team. So like, that's essentially what we are still. We're still a mixed team. I mean, once we have the 6 players like finalized and we have the time to actually go over maps and strats and callouts and stuff, like then we'll actually feel like a proper team. But until then, we're just a mix, and it's just going to look like a bit of a mess if we play. But the biggest factor is me and ID still being in Europe. It's not really fun playing on like 200 ping, because if we play a West Coast team, they've got every right to force us to play on a West Coast server.
You might cut out there a little bit, but IDDQD also told us that last night and kind of told us to keep it on the DL. So I guess since this is going out tomorrow, I think they'll probably be all right. But we did ask about the ping difference, and that did seem to be a problem. And I wonder if you guys are not taking the invite, does that mean that you're giving it to someone else potentially?
Well, I imagine we don't have power over who we're giving it to. Like, I'd love for Selfless to be invited, but I don't think like that's up to us.
Why do you think Selfless? I saw you tweeting out that Selfless are the number 1 team in North America. They should have been invited, etc. So what? Yeah. When you actually look at their match history, although they've been crushing tournaments, the people that they've actually won against in tournaments or matches have not been like the big names. So is this like your behind the scenes knowledge from scrimming them or stuff, or talking
pretty
to
much.
other people?
I feel like the way they play Overwatch is like the correct way to play it, and it's a lot faster, it's a lot more aggressive, it's more exciting in general to watch and play, and it requires a lot more skill individually, especially than team focus, which is what we've seen from a lot of the previous metas, where like you've had triple tank, soldier, or the whole Beyblade thing. There's not been too much individual skill required. Whereas now with the meta kind of up in the air and no one playing specific heroes constantly, the way that they play, like kind of just in your face, spread out constantly, it's super hard to counter. I just think a lot of teams are going to struggle against them.
It seems like their style is a lot more tempo-based as opposed to like set plays and ultimate combos and things like that. They almost throw out their ultimates as soon as they get them, because then they can start charging for the next ultimate. So they play in a really, even though it's kind of frenetic, it's a really efficient kind of play. Yeah,
exactly. And you're going to see a lot of teams start to take on that kind of play style now as well. I think a lot of teams realizing that, wow, we actually shouldn't be playing near the payload. We should be playing near the enemy spawn, and just increasing the amount of fights we can get per area of the map, I guess.
So I had a question regarding how, actually IDDQ mentioned this last night, that when we last spoke to you on our podcast, you were telling us about how you were the shot caller for NRG, but as I understand it, there's been a little bit of a change where both you and Dummy are doing the shot calling now. Like, you're doing some of the initiation shot calling, whereas Dummy's keeping an eye on the kind of overall picture of things, like ultimate percent and where things are positioned, things like that. How's that transition been, and what kind of drove you to make that decision?
Oh, I mean, it's more Ajax that's doing that sort of calling than Dummy. Ajax kind of does the big picture stuff. He talks about ults, when to use them, how we're going to fight, where we're going to fight, and then it's me doing all the target calling just because I'm the loudest person on the team. So it makes sense that we have everyone listen to the loudest person. It's working a lot better, because before this I was kind of doing everything, and as a Reinhardt player, especially, even target calling as a Reinhardt player is super hard, because a lot of the time you're just going to be swinging at the air because there's no one in your range if they're playing a certain comp that you can't do anything against. But it's a lot better now. It feels a lot more fluid, and like I said about earlier, with teams picking up on the selfless playstyle, like we're one of those teams doing that as well. So it's a lot easier to play and call in that sort of way where you're just constantly up in the enemy's face.
With the addition of these 3 new players to the team, IDDQD, Ajax, Harblue, what has that added to your team? How are we expecting to see NRG play, or what extra tools do you now have in your repertoire that you didn't previously have with these 3 guys?
Well, I think having a Roadhog player is going to help us a lot. But I mean, just in general, the fact that everyone's hero pool kind of complements each other, because before with the roster, we kind of had to go out of our way to get people on certain heroes. So like, if we wanted a Tracer player, Seagull would have to go onto Zarya so that Enigma could come off Zarya, and then Enigma would go onto Tracer. It was kind of super awkward. Whereas now, like Harblue has a good pure pool of like Roadhog, Tracer, Soldier, Zarya, Pharah. Seagull, has the Genji, Hanzo, Mei. He does it like every hero in the game basically. And then we have either you could either play all the hitscan heroes. So like they all complement each other really well. There's no awkward switches that people need to make. Like if we need a hero, someone can take it without that being detrimental to the rest of our roster.
Who is your Winston player? Would it be you?
Me, yeah.
You? Okay.
I mean, in the event that we need like another tank, anyone can play Diva really. So we just have me on Winston, then someone else on Diva.
Mm-hmm.
All brain, no aim. That's always been said, Barton.
That's my playstyle summed up, yeah.
What was the thought process like behind building the team and getting these extra players in? Because it's not like you just instantly picked up these three and that's who you were playing with the whole time. So what were you going through in terms of what did you want to add to the team? You had these three core players. What were you looking to bring in?
Just other players that complemented like our playstyle and our heroes. Those are the main things, I guess. Obviously, we want people that fit in as well, which is why we've taken so long because there's quite a checklist to tick off until you get the right player. But the big things are players that complement each other and just similar playstyles. All people that are able to kind of work on what they already have. Because that's the other thing as well. A player like Ajax, he's kind of young and up and coming. But he's got a great mentality and attitude, and he's like super focused on improving and doing that both individually and as a team. He's got a great mentality, probably like the best attitude out of anybody I've ever played with.
Well, I think I speak for everyone when I say that we're all really excited to see your guys' final lineup, and we're really excited to see you guys compete. Thank you so much for being with us, Seb.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's it for us. We'll see you next week on the 12 O'Clock News.